Hey everybody, this is Sherry and I'm back with another Christmas in July video featuring some products from Honeybunnies Treasures. The first is a set called Fly Away With Me from Jelly Bean Soup, and the other one is Oh Happy Day. I made myself a like a instant camera thing, and I cut it out on my cutter. It didn't require any special tools. It didn't require a die. And I apologize. Apparently, I didn't get the footage. I don't know what I did. And but I just put down my EK Success powder tool. I used that to make sure that there was a lot of powder all over that piece. And I took all of the stars out of those two sets, and I made myself a um, a stamp filled with stars so that I didn't have to stamp as much, and all I needed to do was turn them as I went, or turn the paper, whichever, so that they would all come out in different locations. And I'm just going to use some Recollections detailed snow embossing powder, no, excuse me, clear embossing powder, and heat set those. And I was having a heck of a time seeing them, and so I had to heat them and get them done before I could move on to the next row, because maybe it had been better if I used white. I don't know. But man, I could not see those things. So I go back and I start over, and I end up doing actually like a total of 3 rows of stars for the background. And again, I have to heat and use my heat gun between each one to melt the embossing powder so that I could see where to put the next ones. And this, I mean, in most people's craft spaces, we probably have a stamp set or two that has stars. So, you don't have to necessarily have this stamp set, but she does have it available. And, but, use what you got. If you can't get, what somebody else has, we use what we got. We're crafters. We make the best of things, guys. And we make it work. And so I'm just finishing up there. Going to put the last little stamp in the corner there so that I have covered all the spaces. I wanted to make sure that it went off of the side of the paper, because I wanted it to look, like it had been cut from a sheet of paper, not, had blank all the way around it. And so I just finish up. Excuse me, guys. I finish up the last of the heating, and now I'm moving on to my distress inks, and I'm using Chip Sapphire here, and I go over the entire thing, and I just took a piece of paper and laid it beside me to blot off the ink blender tool before I go over to my paper, because I didn't use my Strathmore Bristol Smooth, so I had to make sure I tapped off, or I was going to have a big old blotchy circle. And now I'm coming in with Blueprint Sketch, because it wasn't as dark as I wanted, and I wanted it to look like a nighttime scene. And so I come in with a darker blue, and I like it, but it still isn't as intense and dark as I am wanting. And ultimately, I end up going over it. Well, let me tell you what I'm going to do here. I'm going to use those 3 stamp sets that I'm showing right now, and I'm using something different off of each one of them. And using my my Memento Tuxedo Black ink, which she also has at Honeybunnies Treasures, to stamp my images in. That's what I use every time for my COPIC, when I COPIC color. And I will have the numbers of all of the colors I use on the bottom of the screen. And, some of you may ask, well, Sherry, how do you know what color an armadillo is? And the average person would say, I Googled it. Oh, I wish all I could say was I Googled it. My husband had one for a pet. His name was Minnie G. And he really was like the coolest pet. He slept through the day while my husband was at work, and then when my husband would get home, he'd come out and he'd play and he'd play, and then once you fed him, he would eat and then waddle back over to his little bed and go back to sleep. So, I mean, if you want a low maintenance pet, there you go. For those people who are allergic to fur, I guarantee you they ain't got hardly any. They got a little tiny, tiny, tiny bit of fur. And I mean, I don't even know if I'd call it fur. They're more like whiskers, kind of, because it was kind of coarse. And so when my husband saw that I had an armadillo, he's like, you got to do a card with that. So I'm doing a card, not only any card, but a Christmas card with an armadillo. And now it is, because you guys know I don't see well, so it was really hard for me. There was no way I was going to be able to color and highlight each and every teeny tiny stripe. I couldn't do it. So, you know, I did my best. What I tried to do was just make a gradient from one to the next so that it wasn't, there was just no way I could do it the way I wanted to. And so I'm just finishing up with his little feet, and their little noses are, well, at least in Minnie G's case, his nose got lighter as it got closer to the tip. So I knew that I knew that I could do that, and I knew that they were like a gray brown. So those e-collars were just perfect. And now here I go, and I'm doing the hat, and you'll see I'm only putting one collar of red. I'm not doing any highlighting, anything, because, and I mean, I guess I could have put a shadow where the cap goes behind, but it was so small. It just made it, I mean, you could have gotten away with using two, but not me, because I'm not that steady-handed. So when I just go in and put the shadows in for the ball on the cap, or on the top of the cap, and now I'm going to color up my scarf. And you saw that these all came from different sets, guys. Mix and match your sets. You will be surprised at, what you can find if you pull something out from another set. Did I have a scarf that was going to fit an armadillo? No, I didn't. But what did I do? I found a scarf in another set, and when I trim it down, you will see that it just looks like it was made for him. So I'm just taking my Recollections detail scissors here and cutting him out, and getting as close to the edge as I possibly can so that I don't leave any of the white, because I am getting, I'm not leaving that border, so I need to try to get, I'm going to go over it with my pen like I always do, but the better cutting job you do, the better it's going to look, even when you go back and try to go over top of it with the pen. And here's where I go around the edge with my dual tip marker. And that is a memento marker. I don't know. Somebody had said that if you used one that wasn't like that was an alcohol marker, that it would blend into your images. I don't know. So, but I'm telling you what I heard. If anybody knows the answer to that, please leave it in the comments below, because I'm sure I'm not the only one that would like to know. So I got my pieces all together, and now we're going to start on the background again. So now I'm coming in with Wilted Violet. I want it darker. I want it more intense. And I am not getting it. And if you guys noticed, I have a different mat laying there right now. And there's the black soot that I finally had to resort to. And I put it down, and I realized that I was able to take the glare off of the glass, off of my table. I eventually tape it down so it's not moving like that. But I wanted, to see if it would work and if it made things better. And I went back over my inking with a rag or a towel so that I could make sure I wiped off anything that got on the stars. And here was just a tree that I cut out from one of my Cottage Cuts dies. And she doesn't have this one, but she does have several Cottage Cuts dies at Honeybunnies Treasures. And as a matter of fact, I'm such a Cottage Cuts junkie that they just came out with some new stuff. So if you haven't, if you like their stuff as much as I do, you might want to go check it out. Now here's where I realized, duh, I did it wrong. I wanted it to be lighter at the bottom where he was going to be, but I put it on the side. So now I have to go back over, and I'm like, well, so much for that idea. And I go back over and I just try to leave the center a little lighter. And you can tell there, because I hadn't wiped the stars off yet, and there's a little bit of the black soot on there, but as soon as I wipe it off, it's, they're right back to white. And so now I'm trying to figure out how I want to set my scene up. And when I do a card, I love how these people say, well, this was my plan. And I'm like, wow, I want to be able to do that. No, guys, I wing it from the get-go. I say, okay, I wanted to use those jelly bean stamps. I was determined I was going to use them. And so that's how the card started. And then it just kind of went from there. I really do not have much of a plan when I make a card. Excuse me. And so I just cut down a piece of brown to try to make it look like a tree trunk. Now, what I will tell you, when I do this card again, and I will because my husband liked it so well, he wants enough to send to each of his brothers, and he's got 3 brothers. So when I do the next ones, I will not put the trunk of the tree in. I will move it down so that you don't see any of the stars behind the tree. I think it just kind of took away from what I was, the thing I was trying to create, the vision of this little, armadillo in the moonlight at Christmas time. So next time I definitely will, or I could have even put in a bank for a snowbank. That would have been cool too. So there, I'm just going over the edge of the scarf where I cut it off, so it looks like it was, designed that way. And I'm going to put my little hat on with my art glitter glue, which I am just like madly in love with that stuff. And I'm going to, again, set him up, try to get it ready. And it's just not working for me. And so I go and I get another die from Cottage Cuts out, and I use that tree die. And I mean, all of these were meant for completely different things, but they worked great for what I needed. And so it doesn't have to be a Christmas tree, guys. Any tree will work. And so I kept trying to get them to stay together so I could kind of see what I was wanting. They wouldn't stay, so I finally resorted to sticking them together with Post-it note tape. That way I was sure that I could get, get it in the exact position I wanted. And so now that I've got them glued together, I'm going to, add a little glue at the top so everything's all nice and stuck. And again, I'm going to start it all over again and figure out where I want everything. And I decide that I want my trees there, but they're hanging over on the side, so I have to, and I apologize for going off screen there. I didn't even realize I did. I have to go on the sides, and I have to cut off the stuff that's sticking around, or the frame's not going to lay flush. And so I just go trim off anything that's sticking over. I wanted this to look like a Polaroid. And so I go ahead and I get my tree down, or my trees, and see, if I'd have dropped it, I'm pointing again, I really don't know why I do that, but if I'd have dropped those trees down and you couldn't see the stars, I would have liked it better. And that's definitely what I'm going to do next time. And I just took some fun foam and cut it to the size I needed to support the entire Polaroid picture. And then now I'm laying in the inset, and I'm going to, there I go, glue down the bottom of it so that it's going to fit on my card base. And then I just take and I go over, I have no idea really why I went back over it, but I did. You know, maybe I noticed I missed a spot. To be honest, you know, I told you guys this pneumonia's kicking my butt. I can't remember nothing. But let me know what you think. You'll see here later that, you know, about the glare with that mat. I think it works, and I think it takes away a lot of the glare that was coming from my lights. And here I just use a COPIC multiliner to go over the stripes, or, you know, little lines in the stamp again, because, you know, that collar was dark, and it took away a little bit, and it just wasn't quite as precise, maybe, as, you know, it would have had I used a lighter brown, where the lines would have stood out more. And I'm just going to take my black glaze pen. I'm going to put that in his eye. That's why he looks a little freaky there. And I missed it. So I'm trying to find the paper I want, and I did, out of that Cartabella stack. And I absolutely love that. I cannot believe how much I love that stack, and how much I'm using that paper. Now, I just found a sentiment that I wanted to go across the bottom of the Polaroid. You know, you use whatever you have. You know, Merry Christmas would look great there, anything. And so I get it stamped down, and I use my Versamark ink for that, because I like that I always get a crisp image when I use that, or a crisp dark. I like the darkness. So here I just take my designer paper and I cut it down to 4 by 5 1/4, because I wanted to have a little bit of a white border from the card base showing through. And I actually probably could have put a blue card base behind that. That would have looked really pretty too. And so see, I'm coming up with ideas for the other two I gotta make. And so I'm just going to go ahead and use my ATG tape to get that on the card the way I want. Any star punch you have, guys, I just wanted one star to go at the top of one of the trees. I didn't want them all to have it. I just wanted one to stand out. And I made the ones in the back darker so that they would appear further away, and the ones up, you know, in the front would look closer because they were lighter. So that's my thinking. And that gold paper is also the gold stuff from the Dollar Tree. So if you're looking for an inexpensive gold and silver and stuff like that for the holidays, I would definitely check out your Dollar Tree. And I go ahead and I use my white glaze pen there, and it's going to take a few minutes for that to turn white. It comes out a milky color, but the card is pretty much done. I go back in and I add some chalk to his little cheeks and put some Spectrum Noir shimmer down on my trees, and my card is done. In case you didn't notice, I changed the name of my channel to CPR, Craft, Pray, Repeat. So make sure that you practice your CPR every day, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for visiting me today, and happy crafting. Bye, everybody.